nation where unknown forces strike the edge of ecology.
With a glorious future, and we can be confident, dash it, we're the world's 5th largest economy. We don't need anybody to prop us up or to tell us what to do. And of course we want to cooperate and to have good relations, but there is a difference between a sovereign state and a super state, and we will never be part of their super state. So thank you, thank every single one of you here for what you've done. Now today, let us rejoice in the day that the Brexit Party made.
Well done, Anne. Isn't she great? Give a massive thank you to Anne Widdecombe. Whoa! She is amazing. Tireless energy, hugely important figure, as is our next speaker. From the world of celebrity dance, we move swiftly to the pub. Because, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, he's the largest publican in the country. He's a fantastic businessman, a great entrepreneur, an example to us all. And again, he's worked tirelessly through the last few years.
I'm guessing this is Tim Martin of Wetherspoons fame. So just tuning in there, watching a little bit of the live broadcast of Nigel Farage and Anne Widdecombe and Jacob Rees-Mogg apparently at the Leave Means Leave rally in London. So today is the 31st of January 2020, which is Brexit Day in the UK. So I just wanted to put out this episode just to kind of mark the occasion really. Nothing too long, I haven't really got a great deal to say, but felt the urge to mark it. So we're about an hour away now from Brexit, from the British departure from the European Union. That's going to happen at 11 o'clock. Boris Johnson is about to give a speech, but apparently it's already pre-recorded, so it's just going to be a kind of recorded message which is going to get broadcast on radio, and I guess there's a video, so it will be on television as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Johnson has to say, but I suspect it will be pretty generic in its tone. It will probably just talk about the need for securing great trade deals with America, China, etc., and to move on and to heal the division, all that business. So yeah, I guess I've got mixed feelings about it really today. I feel happy. I'm positive. I think it could be a really good thing, Brexit, but I'm worried about the division. I don't think the division's going to change overnight. I think it's going to take months until Remainers really start to just accept that we have left the EU, and it's going to take several years at least for any possible attempt to rejoin. I mean, I don't think there is any likely chance that we will rejoin for a long time, but you never know. I guess it all depends on how these trade talks go. But even if they go in a sort of kind of like middle of the road sort of way, without being great or without being particularly bad, I think we'll probably end up in a situation where no one really notices much difference with what's happening. But we've got a year. I mean, people talk about Brexit Day like it's a big thing today. I mean, it's significant only in its symbolism, I think. I mean, really, we've got a year where we have to abide by the European Union laws, including free movement. And then December this year, we will be able to start moving away from the European Union laws, and we will no longer be privy to the European Court of Justice. But that was all agreed in the negotiations. So it's no surprise. But I think it's symbolic that we are leaving. I think I'm hoping it's going to instill a sense of nationhood. I mean, who knows? I mean, I like sovereignty. I like the concept of being a free nation, but only if that nation stands for goods. And we just don't know what this Johnson government's going to be all about over the next 5 years. So Brexit, yeah, it's been a long 3.5 years of exhausting. I think certainly from my perspective, 2016 feels like it was a very long time ago. a lot's changed in my life over that time on a personal level. I live in a different place to where I lived in 2016. I've got a different job, and I kind of associate with different people, really. I've made several new friends since 2016, and I've kind of lost touch with people who I knew back in 2016. 3 or 4 people who I was very close to back then kind of faded in from my life, not for any particular reason, but just because it's just naturally the ebb and flow of life, I suppose. But maybe Brexit was partly down to some of it. I think in hindsight I can see how, I never got too vocal, but I can see how perhaps the division did creep in at times with certain people I knew, friends, and there were a few heated moments a couple of years ago, just after the Brexit referendum result hit. I think for that period in 2016, for a couple of months after then, maybe on nights where I was not necessarily, I was kind of letting my guard down a bit. I was prepared to argue with people a bit. I got quite vocal, and let's just say that the real person came out from some people I knew, and I didn't like what I was seeing in terms of the venom I was receiving from people who I thought were friends. And that's something that I think many Brexiteers can relate to, is a sense that Remainers do get very, very, very aggressive when it comes to this subject. Whereas I think Brexiteers tend to be a little bit more calm, but I don't necessarily want to stereotype everyone in those camps, and everyone's got their different views and different reasons for leaving and wanting to remain. I am a Brexiteer, but I'm not a hardline Brexiteer. I kind of think maybe we could have stayed in the EU, but we needed to reform it. But then again, I don't think the EU wants to be reformed, and I think it is heading towards a supranational entity status, i.e. i.e. a kind of federalised Europe. And I remember studying EU law in 2005 when I was at university as part of a law degree, and there was a whole debate back then about whether or not the EU was intergovernmental or supranational, the academic terms, and it was kind of common, it was agreed really, the academics would argue very strongly back then that it was an intergovernmental entity, and if you wrote an essay explaining how it was very much intergovernmental, you were guaranteed a 2-1 or a first. And I remember I attempted to write an essay about how it was supranational, and it was heading towards this kind of state of being a centralised government that wanted its own army, etc. And I got pretty slammed by professors, no names mentioned, but one of them has been on the news a few times. And they didn't necessarily grade me down for it. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but I think they kind of didn't like it. I think in seminars they often encouraged me to have a different perspective on it, let's just say. I found that quite interesting. But quite honestly, compared to what the culture is like now, in 2005, it felt like a very calm and sort of humane and well-meaning debate, whereas now I think it's just become extremely divisive and bitter and very aggressive. So anyway, there we go. So we are leaving in an hour's time, and that's that. Peter and I haven't done a great deal of episodes about Brexit, really. I think the last time we did one on this podcast was back in October, and I think that was when we weren't really sure whether or not we were leaving or not. It was all a bit up in the air, and no one quite knew whether or not the stalemate would stick. But eventually we got Boris Johnson, and we had that snap election, which I think sent us down the road we're now going down. So happy Brexit Day from the information. Let's see what this year brings, and it's going to be an interesting period. I think it could be very, very interesting, in fact, if we if we strike some deals and we really do start to become a global nation with interesting ideas and pioneer new ways of doing things, and maybe instill some sense of pride back in our industries. But it could go one of two ways, couldn't it? Let's be honest. So time will tell.
This cherished national treasure that is loved by one and all. It educated, it informed, it entertained. All the same, maybe we should rethink the BBC. Why do we need state-supplied TV It's oh so pious and riddled with bias, could its
The information where unknown forces strike the edge of ecology.